Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q2 FY22 earnings conference call of Kalpataru Power Transmission and JMC, hosted by DAM Capital Advisors Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on a touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Bhumika Nair from DAM Capital Advisors Limited. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Ridhija. Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Kalpataru Power Transmission Limited and JMC Projects Limited for 2Q22 earnings call. We have the management today being represented by Mr. Manish Mohnot, Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Amit Uplenchwar, Director of Group Strategy and Subsidiary Operations, Mr. Ram Patodia, President Finance and CFO, and Mr. S.K. Tripathi, Managing Director and CEO of JMC Projects. I'll now hand over the call to Mr. Manish Mohnot for his opening remarks, post which we'll open up the floor for Q&A. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhumika, and a very good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the KPTL and JMC Q2 earnings call. I have on the call with me S.K. Tripathi, MD and CEO of JMC, Ram Patodia, CFO and President Finance, KPTL, Amit Uplenchwar, Director of Group Strategy and Subsidiary Operations, Azad Shaw, CFO, KPTL, along with me on the call. I hope you and your near and dear ones are doing well and keeping safe. Before moving to the financial details, let me first provide brief update on the key events of the quarter. This was a challenging quarter from a cost perspective, as steel and other commodity prices along with international freight continue to witness an upward trend. For instance, between March 21 and now, steel prices have moved up by minimum 20%, while aluminium has increased by almost 30%. Similarly, freight charges to different parts of Africa and Latin America have more than doubled. Given such a situation, while our margins have been under pressure, we've strategically realigned our dispatches as per the feasibility of the project execution cycle. Despite challenges, we saw broad-based top-line growth led by strong execution in B&F, water, railways, and our international T&D subsidiaries. Vinjay Montage, our Sweden subsidiary, reported revenue growth of 28% YOY in Q2 22 and 17% in half 1 22. Coming to an update on our road BOOT assets. As you may know, toll collections from our Kurukshetra road BOOT assets had been adversely impacted since the last 6 quarters due to the ongoing farmer agitation. As a result, in accordance with provisions of the concession agreement, we issued a notice termination for the asset during this quarter. With regard to Wainganga asset, we have received consent from its lenders for restructuring and are in the final stages of completing the required formalities. This quarter in our financials, you will see that we have provided for expected credit loss with respect to loans given to KEPL and impairment in equity value of KEPL and WEPL. We have a lot of receivables from NHAI in terms of legal matters which we have not accounted in books, and they will be accounted once the legal, the arbitration cases are already declared in our favor. Our divestment of Vindhyachal Road asset is under progress. We plan to complete this transaction in the second half of this fiscal. With respect to other assets, we are progressing well on closure of transaction of Kohima-Mariam Trans line. For this too, our target is to close it in H3 of 22. Sorry. We witnessed good sales traction in the Indore project and till date have completed sale of 40% in the total saleable area. We are aiming to complete sale of the remaining units over the next 10 to 12 months, with significant cash flow coming in by December 22. On order inflow and order book, our consolidated order book including L1 stands at an all-time high of 35,700 crores, and we have received orders worth 9,800 crores till date this year on a consolidated basis. Our restriction on KPTL for bidding for World Bank Group funded projects ended on 6th October 21. Since then, the company started bidding for World Bank and other funded projects, though we continue to be on the monitoring phase. Now that we are strategically focusing to take our non-T&D business to international markets, moving out of the ban phase should help us to strengthen our international order book in the next few quarters. Now coming to the financial performance, first at KPTL consol level. Consol revenue grew by 17% to rupees 3,549 crores. EBITDA margin in Q2 was 8.5%. Our EBITDA margin was impacted mainly due to adverse commodity prices and higher freight costs, as I mentioned earlier. Further, the divestment of ATL adversely impacted our margins by almost 160 basis points. During Q2 22, we have provided for expected credit loss of 49 crores towards loans advances given to Kurukshetra Express Private Limited and impairment of intangible assets in Wainganga Express Private Limited of rupees 15 crores. Our decline in EBITDA and exceptional items has led to fall in PBT and PAT. Our consolidated net debt at 2,810 crores is a decline of 18% compared to the same time last year. At KPTL standalone, revenue for Q2 was affected due to lower dispatches in T&D business and unseasonal and prolonged rains in certain areas impacting oil and gas business. T&D revenues including Linjemontage Montage and Fasttel grew by around 15%, oil and gas declined by around 50%, and railways grew by 11% in Q2 22. Linjemontage Montage Sweden reported revenue of 268 crores with growth of 28%, and Fasttel Brazil recorded revenue of 223 crores in Q2 22. Despite lower revenue growth and impact of commodity, we were able to maintain EBITDA margin of 9.4% in Q2 22 and 9.8% in half 1 22. In Q2 22, exceptional item is towards impairment of investment in relation to Indore real estate project of rupees 45 crores. Our lower revenue growth, fall in EBITDA margin and exceptional item has led to fall in PBT and PAT. Our net debt is at rupees 1149 crores at the end of September 21. Our debt levels remain elevated given higher inventory levels and lower collection in Q2, which is normally a cycle in our business. We are targeting to reduce our standalone debt substantially with the help of inflows from sale of Kohima transmission asset, receipt of inflows from Indore asset, and focusing on project closure and optimizing our working capital. KPTL received orders of rupees 2,000 crores till date. Additionally, we L1 in around 1,800 crores. We have witnessed delays in finalization of tenders. However, we expect ordering momentum to improve in the next few months. Our standalone order book at the end of September 21 was at rupees 12,397 crores. JMC standalone revenue grew by 64% to 1,321 crores in Q2 22, driven by robust execution in B&F and water business. JMC's EBITDA margin was impacted due to rise in material costs and nature of job mix. Most of the contracts in JMC have pass-through clause and to the maximum extent will be billed in the later period. JMC has provided for impairment against equity investment of 98.3 crores and expected credit loss of 179 crores with respect to Kurukshetra road asset. Additionally, there is an impairment of 15.4 crores towards investment in the Wainganga road asset. Our net debt at rupees 700 crores at the end of September 21 is similar to June levels despite a robust growth in turnover. JMC received order inflows of rupees 7,959 crores till date, and order book is at an all-time high of 18,700 crores at the end of September 21. In Q2 22, we have made an additional investment of around 29 crores in our road projects, taking the total investment to rupees 956 crores at the end of September 21. We continue to adopt a cautious approach in bidding with the goal to minimize risk and deliver profitable growth. The increase in commodity price, rise in freight costs, and supply chain disruptions continue to pose near-term challenges. However, our strong and diversified order book provides good visibility for future growth from a long-term perspective. With that, we can open the call for questions.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Renu Baid from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Renu.
Yeah, challenging results. So the first question is execution has been muted, and to a good extent that was also the constraint last fiscal where compared to some of the peers we had headwinds. So if you can help us understand what was the quantum of revenue slippages owing to the various logistics and other issues which you have highlighted, and what are we doing to broadly mitigate this kind of slowdown, or I would say relatively muted influence from some of the end markets where the portion of civil has been increasing, be it in the rail segment or otherwise. And do you perceive that some of the opportunities in the civil segment have been looking far more brighter than for pure engineering T&D operations that we have been having in T&D and rail EPC? And so from that perspective, is JMC's presence in those portfolio constraining growth for Kalpataru? And under this backdrop, by when do you plan to finally merge both the entities so that, even JMC can garner a higher share of the pie? And to that extent, Kalpataru also is able to derive better share from the end market.
Renu, I think you had 5 questions, but all very, very pertinent. So let me start with the first one. We have delayed dispatch of revenue of approximately $20 million on account of freight issues, on account of high steel prices, and all of them has been aligned with the client. So none of them has been something which has been done unilaterally. So closer to $20 million approximately of revenue has got deferred, which should happen in Q4 or beginning of next year. Right? That's the first thing. Second, yes, we have been cautious in taking orders in our core T&D sector, given that they are all fixed price in nature and steel volatility was beyond at least our imagination. Right? They look like stabilizing now. October again we saw prices going up. We've not seen anything in the last 2 weeks, but we do not know. We continue to have an order book of the old price steel of around 80,000 tons, which we will deliver in Q3, Q4. We have been cautious on our margins also. So on a CTC basis, we had an opening CTC loss provision of 146 crores. If you all remember, it's now at 157 crores. So we've increased our CTC provisioning looking at the steel and aluminum prices at the end of Q2 September. Now, the third question was, do we see civil business having a lot more opportunity? Yes, definitely. And I think we've been speaking about this for the last 4 to 6 quarters, that JMC's growth looks like happening much bigger and much faster because the civil space has a lot more opportunities, one. Lot less risk because majority of the contracts have a price variation clause, second. Lot less competition in some of the segments because, the big guys continue to deliver, focus on delivery, and that's an advantage, third. But at the same time, just to answer your last question, is there a constraint in terms of JMC growing the order book or focusing on revenue? I would say no. The constraint is only in terms of building a team, right? Because all of this requires a team which needs to be built and which does not happen overnight. So we are not saying no to orders because of any constraint from a banking side, from a limit side, or from any other side. We are conscious, but there's no constraint. So if there's opportunity by which we have to grow the JMC order book further by 25%, I do not see any constraints. The last question, yes, you need to start looking at the consolidated results a lot more because now you'll get a flavor of what we are together. As far as the larger strategy of merger is concerned, that's something which, the senior management and board will take a call over a period of time.
Got it. And also, secondly, on the real estate side, since the business also has been an upswing, so what is the status with respect to promoters' plan to deleverage? And do you believe there could be a possibility that they could deleverage faster or quicker than their initial plans and release the entire pledge, or that doesn't seem to be on their minds?
So, my discussions with the promoters have been that they are on track to reduce leverage by December, what we had promised, to take it to levels of 40%, and then further by March reduce it further. So we expect that March we should be back to the old days of only 20 to 30% being pledged. But December targets are intact. They're pretty confident of achieving what they had committed to us in terms of reducing pledge by December to a significant extent.
And if I can ask one more, can you help us understand how is the domestic T&D and the ordering on the rail EPC side? And are we seeing increased competition on the oil and gas, given that KEC also recently entered this space with a smaller acquisition? Thank you.
Let me answer the last question first. I think oil and gas still continues to be limited competition. KEC required a company which is already in competition, so it's not additional competition. Right? It's better to have competition which is strong and similar mindset people. That's better than having small players. So that as far as T&D is concerned, yes, we are cautious, and I don't see a lot of visibility in terms of order book in the next at least 12 odd months, and I've been conscious about this for the last 2 years. I think domestic will continue to grow only at 4-5% level. We are looking at some orders on a TBCB with a few private sector players, including Power Grid. We're looking at a few SEBs orders in neighboring countries, and neighboring countries, now that we are allowed to bid for ADB and all funded projects, we should be getting some orders there. But still the growth there, I do not see growing more than 4 to 5%, max 7.5%. As far as railway sector is concerned, there have been intense competition in some tenders, and I think that will continue to be the plan for the next 3 to 6 months at least. But our focus is a lot more international on that, and we are targeting at least to win one large international project by the end of the year on the railways segment.
Got it, sir. Thanks much. I'll get back in the queue with more questions. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Parikshit Kandpal from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. My first question is on the Indore real estate project. So we have seen a big uptick in the real estate sector for the last 12 months. So just wanted to understand what was the need for taking this write-off in this project? That was my first question.
So Parikshit, Indore, I'll just give you a quick background of the Indore project. We have 5 towers there, right, where we've got OC for 3 of them, one of them expected soon, and the towers are fully complete except one tower, which is up to 6 floors. So OC received, people have come to stay. We were holding price levels at a particular point, given the one Kalpataru brand and given the location of the project. But we saw that at a different price level, the sales were moving much faster. To give you a perspective, in the month of September, we sold 9 units, right? And we expect to sell around 15 more units in this quarter. We got an inflow of around 30 crores in the month of first 2 weeks of October coming from that project. So conscious call was taken on saying that instead of holding back the price levels, let's focus on sales. So we reduced our target price levels on residential from upwards of 10,200 to 9,400 per square feet. And we reduced our target price on shops from around 26,500 to 20,000. And we saw huge sales coming in. So a conscious call was taken on saying that, there's so much cash flow stuck on that project that, it's better to get that cash flow out instead of focusing on, the higher price levels, which in some parts of the country you're still not able to get. So based on that, a call was taken, and we got Knight and Frank to do a valuation report also, which came in with the relevant numbers. Based on the valuation report, the auditors believe that there would be a provisioning required, which was done at an energy link level, and then in consol it's visible in the and at a KPTL level. Although it does not have any impact on consol numbers, but at a standalone numbers it has an impact. So with this confidence, we said let's go ahead, and we're pretty confident that more than 100 crores of cash flow should come on this project by March itself, and significant amount by December. So target is 100 crores plus cash flow by March and balance by December. As of today, we have sold around 40% of our, in square feet terms, we've sold around 40% of the space, and we're targeting to sell around 20% in the next 2 quarters itself, if not more.
Okay. And what is the relevant macro market pricing there? So you're selling at almost close to 9,000 rupees. So what is the relevant market prices there in that market?
Sorry, I missed this. Your question was not very clear. Can you please repeat that? Sorry.
You said you have taken down the pricing. So I just wanted to know that you're selling at 9,400 rupees per square feet. So what will be the relevant market pricing? Is it similar, or you are still at a premium? So that I just want to understand whether the sales velocity will be maintained or we need to further price take.
Majority of our last 5 sales have been more in the range of 9,600 to 800. Right, I have the data in front of me. Last 5 residential flats we sold higher than 9,400, slightly higher than that. So we believe selling at this price should not be a challenge at all, because the neighboring market is in a similar range, plus minus 500, depending upon the brand of the project, depending upon the amenities, depending upon completion versus under construction. But plus minus 500 rupees is the band in the neighboring localities. Actually, it's more minus than plus.
Okay, my second question is on the pledge shares. So I remember last time when the promoters came on the call, they had committed that about 150 crores worth of pledge will be released by March 21 and another 150 crores by December 2021. So So how are we progressed on that? So out of the 300 crores of commitment, how much has been reduced, and what's the plan for the balance to be reduced?
Yeah. So just to give you a perspective from a percentage pledge of promoter holding, right? So 31st March 20, the percentage of promoter holding pledge was around 57. 31st March 21, they reduced it to 50 as that promise. 30th June 21, it came down to 45, which was 45.9, which was promised. And 30th December, they are clear that it will be at around 40%. And as I said earlier, there's a plan that by March they will further reduce it, right? Whether the 40 will become 35 or 30, we still don't know clarity, but by March it will come down further. But by December, the plan of reducing the pledge from 57.5 when they came into the com to 40%, 45 is already done, and the balance 5 should all happen in the next 2 to 3 months.
My last question is on further write-offs in the road asset portfolio. So we are on cleaning our books now, potentially ahead of likely merger. But just want to understand what kind of potential write-offs can happen again, because we did touch about that you're looking to monetize one of the assets. So by this year, and how much further write-off is expected, and with that, mostly will be done with all the major write-offs and all the investments which we have made, that's in real estate or in road assets.
Yeah, let me answer this. Actually, let me answer this, and then maybe I'll go step by step. Kurukshetra, I think we have done everything, right? Our books, we only have a small amount, which is an arbitration claim which we have already won. So Kurukshetra, there can be only an upside with some minimal expenses till NHAI takes over, which will be very minimal in nature. As far as WEPL is concerned, looking at the current scenario, looking at the traffic up to last month, we do not believe that we'll require a write-off at least for the next defined period of time. And with restructuring approved by bankers, the probability of write-off on that project is very, very low. As far as WEPL is concerned, as we said earlier, there is a prospective buyer. We're confident of signing the binding term sheet in the month of November itself. And based on that, there could be some hit required, which is the difference of the equity value they are offering, but a very minimal hit versus what is in our books. I'm not able to quantify it because of the confidentiality clause, but it will be very minimal in nature. As far as the fourth road asset is concerned, I don't think that road asset requires any write-off. It is cash positive, and it has a 7 years left, so we don't see any issues coming on that. As far as Indore is concerned, as I said earlier, we've already taken our books up to 9,400. We're selling at 9,600 to 800 levels. So a further impairment provision looks highly unlikely unless there's a COVID-3, which I hope there's no COVID-3 or COVID-4, anything like that, but highly, highly unlikely. So from a provisioning perspective, if you ask me personally, except for WEPL, which will not be a provisioning, which will be if we sell it off, if there's a difference between the equity value offered by them, and there could be some small amount. Except that, I think we are done with everything.
Okay, sir. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants to ask a question, please press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Swarnim Maheshwari from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hello sir. Good morning and thanks for the opportunity. Two set of questions, sir. First, yes, sir. So first on order intake side, I think it's been about first half and we are tracking a bit being on the weaker side. So you did mention that you are actually conscious on the CLT orders. But really just wanted to understand, we had earlier given a guidance, or you were confident of achieving about 9,000 odd crores of intake. So the second half, including the L1 also, if you see, so we do see something like about 5,000 crores of intake in the H2, and what is the overall ordering pipeline like?
So Swarnim, on guidance on order book, let me just take you through the entire, right from console to KPTL to JMC. So if you see our console order book guidance inflow for the year was around 15,000 crores when we started the year. We're now revising it to a minimum of 18,000 crores on console. It could go even up to 20, so 18 to 20,000 is our console order book guidance as far as KPTL console is concerned. On a standalone, yes, KPTL we guided for 9,000 crores. As of today, pretty confident of reaching 7 to 8,000 crores because we've got out of the World Bank embargo, and we're seeing international tenders. We're seeing good uptick in Middle East. We're seeing good uptick on international tenders on oil and gas and railways. So pretty confident of 7 to 8,000. We will try a level best for 9,000, but pretty confident of between 7 to 8,000 crores. With this order book guidance in terms of revenue growth, obviously there'll be a challenge. So we're revising the standalone KPTL revenue growth to 5 to 10% from 10 to 15% on annualized basis. But as far as console is concerned, we still continue to be at 15% plus, and we still continue to be guiding EBITDA margin in the range of 9 to 10% on a console basis. So I know for 6 months we have done only 8.4% margin on a console basis, but we're pretty confident that from here, unless steel again goes up by, let's say, 20% or some of those things happen, we're pretty confident because we've provided the CTC losses. As I said earlier, we have around 157 crores of CTC losses in books on 30th September. So we're still guiding console in the range of 9 to 10% and wanting to take it back to double digits getting into the next year.
Got it, sir. Got it. And so on the overall ordering opportunity side right now, is it about what 50,000 crores? And if you can just give some flavor over there.
Yeah. So if I get into different segments, right? If I get into T&D with improved visibility post our embargo, we're bidding for 20,000 crores itself in the next couple of months in different parts of the world, including Latin America, including Sweden, including Brazil, all of that. Oil and gas, there's been some delays, but we now see tenders coming up a lot more international. As of today, we qualified in 6 countries internationally on KPTL standalone. So oil and gas now, Middle East looks like a very good opportunity. So we see approximately 2,000-3,000 crores of tenders happening there in this quarter itself. Railway, similar number. As far as JMC is concerned, we're seeing very good traction on B&F in the southern India, right, where we are among the largest ones today. Southern and northern India, we're seeing a lot of traction coming in. Water continues to be very, very bullish, and in the water segment, you'll see orders of 10,000 plus crores happening in this quarter itself. Urban infra, we are L1 and one large project, and we're seeing many more projects coming in metros as well as highways. So we are cautious in that, given the size of the project and given the kind of competition, but there's opportunity. So if you ask me together, in Q3, we should be bidding for around 40 to 50,000 crores in Q3 itself at a console level.
Got it, sir. Got it. Right, sir. And sir, you did mention, on the previous participant's question about the merger. I mean, if you can just actually share some thoughts, what could be the possible synergies over here? I know this is still at the early stage, but if you can just actually, give some flavor over there.
Sure. So again, as I would repeat, this is something which the board and the senior management will take a call at an appropriate time, right? So that, no one expects that it's going to happen today or tomorrow or day after, right? It's something with the board will take the final call. From a synergy perspective, I think there's a lot of synergy in utilizing the skill sets of KPTL and JMC on composite projects, whether it's composite on railway, whether it is composite on water and oil and gas, whether it is the international front where KPTL has been there for more than 15 years, JMC has been there for only last 3 years. We are in 60 plus countries, they are in 5 countries, and there's a huge opportunity there. Whether it is on the banking side, whether it is on the entire cost front in terms of having a common team on all the support functions. And the last and the most important, whether it is on, bidding for much larger projects. Today, if you see our average project size is typically in the range of 250 to 1,000 crores. Internationally, sometime here we're bidding for $200 million. But so our ability to bid for much larger projects could be very different. But while we're looking at all of this, I would again like to repeat that this is something which we will be presenting to the board at an appropriate time, and it's a call of the board on this matter.
Clear, sir, clear. And sir, possible cost synergies, would you have rolled it out? I mean, again, just to reiterate, we understand that this is extremely early stage, but would you have done any kind of work over there?
So, there would be definitely cost synergy in all the aspects I said. Our internal target is a minimum 100 basis points improvement by doing that, but the exact numbers we would be able to quantify, once we closer to, if at all, whenever it happens, because on support functions and banking and all of that, we could easily get 100 basis point advantage at a EBITDA level.
Right. This is clear, sir. Sir, thank you so much. Wish you all the best and happy Diwali to the management. Thank you.
Thank you, Swanim. Wishing you and your family also very happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ajay Sheikh from Quest Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, Manish ji. Good morning.
Good morning, Ajay ji.
Yeah, I have just one question. We have been talking about that we have claims on our road projects. I just want to understand, number one, what's the quantum of the claims we have? Number two, what's the status right now? And number three, when do you think it can fructify and, strengthen the balance sheet of JMC or a console level?
SKT, you want to take that?
Yeah. So Ajay bhai, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah. So just to give you the overall perspective on the claim, on the road side, we already have awards of about 250 crore, which are is in the court, and we can see some timeline, maybe 2 to 3 years for when the maturity starts. Apart from that, on the boot assets, we have lodged claims of about 1,700 crore, and we can see the first award coming in by first quarter of the next year, say by April, May, right?
Okay.
And the second award we can expect by the Q2.
Okay.
So this is where overall position, and by December end, we can see the next year December, we can see the finality on the 1,700 crore basket, the awards coming in.
So if my understanding is correct, are you trying to say that these 1,700 crores, we have already taken the write-off in JMC books, and if it materializes, let's say by December next year, it will strengthen to that extent our net worth and balance sheet?
No, Ajay bhai. So let me tell you, as I said, about 250 to 300 crore claims are already in the court. They are the post-award stage, right?
Okay.
So as and when they keep coming, that will get directly into the bottom line, and it will strengthen the balance sheet.
Yeah.
So this is one stage, you can say the advanced stage. The
Okay.
second stage, which is the claim 1,700 crore, which are there in the arbitration, right?
Okay.
On that, I just said that the awards will start coming in from the quarter one of the next year, and they will go up to the December next year, so that we will be able to see what we are able to fetch out of the 1,700 crore, maybe 50-60% of that. But
Okay.
again, these awards will get into the court process. And Ajay bhai, as you know, I mean, we are conservative unless we do not see the money. We are not taking this into the balance sheet, these numbers.
No, fair enough. I'm not
So
wanting...
let me add, Ajay bhai, let me add to your question, right? From accounting perspective, yes, whatever award we get will directly get into P&L, right? Once the client does not contest it, because as of today, all expenses incurred on all these projects have been taken to P&L in some form or the other. So whatever awards come in, if it is at the highest level and there's no contest from the client, will directly be a positive aspect in the P&L.
So just to clarify once more, I understand now what both of you are saying. Just to understand once more, let's hypothetical situation. I'm not talking about the actual situation, and I understand your conservative policy of not recognizing in P&L unless and until the finality becomes a reality. Let's have a hypothetical situation that award comes in our favor. The government decides not to contest into the court of law. Okay. So is my understanding correct that this 250 crore plus, let's put it up, a 50% of 1,700 crores, so around 800 crores additional. So that 1,000 crore will be like both cash flow as well as will go into the profit and loss account? Bottom line, maybe whatever it is.
So Ajay bhai, let's not quantify that number. Any number from 250 to whatever that number would be. Yes, 250 definitely looks like a minimum number. But yes, whatever that number is, whether it's 500, 700, 900, 1,000, 1,200, whatever that number is, yes, you're right. It will come in cash flow. So 250, some of the 250 have already come in the cash flow. Not the entire amount, but the balance amount will all come into cash flow and P&L.
So,
Okay.
Manishji, I will.
Yeah,
Sure.
sorry.
So I will add just one thing here. So Ajay bhai, so 250 crore is our claims from the roads which are in the court. Our overall claim basket, which is there in the court, is to the tune of about 400 crore plus. This is
Okay.
say B&F awards and this and that, and they will start trickling in as I said, from 2 years to next 3 years coming into the, and against this all expenses are already accounted for.
right?
So just
That
to
basket is 400 crore, not 250 crore.
yeah. So just to finalize this discussion, I don't want to just trace around. I understand what you are saying, but over a period of next 3 to 5 years, this whatever claim comes in, without any commitment from your side, can make capital console level absolutely debt free.
So Ajay, that's anyway our plan. On the EPC front at least, we still continue to be plan capital standalone closer to being debt free by 31st March 22 and JMC plus capital on the EPC side being very low on debt by 31st March 23.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay bhai.
Manishji, really great work by you and your team.
Thank you, Ajay. Wishing you a very happy Diwali.
Same to you. Thank you.
Same to you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jainam Shah from Equirus Securities. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Congratulations on a good set of numbers. Sir, my question is related to JMC projects. So, sir, as we have done a good amount of execution during 1H, wherein COVID was there during 1Q and monsoon season was there during 2Q. So, are we changing our overall revenue assumption for the FY22, or are we stick to that around 25% growth on the basis of FY21?
So we will remain in the range of 20 to 25% as conveyed earlier.
Okay. And sir, the margin has been impacted during 1Q and 2Q, and there has been some lag impact because of commodity prices. So are we stick to that double-digit EBITDA margin for the whole year, or it will be just for the 2H, and there will be, 2H will be having double-digit margin, and overall FY22 will be having single-digit EBITDA margin?
So second half will definitely have the double-digit margin, but overall the margins will be under pressure due to the commodity and lag in the escalation realization from the customers. So it could be anything between 9 to 10. That is, we can expect at the year end.
Okay. This is at the FY22 overall level, right?
Right.
Okay. Sir, just wanted to know about one clarification about the debt numbers. So, sir, there has been any change in the line item for the current portion of debt, like it has been added to the borrowings, or it is part of the others only? Because as we see the face of the balance sheet, there has been a short-term debt and long-term debt for the JMC, which is actually same as shown in the investor presentation, whereas in the annual report, current portion was part of other current liability. So that is to be added to the number, or it is already been added?
Ajay, can you take that question?
This is just a recap.
There is a change in accounting standard, and because of that, there is a reclassification of current maturity of debt. So it's only a reclassification which is making difference. Otherwise, there is no change.
No, so but the point you're saying is, do you need to add this to the numbers which we have in our investor presentation? No, the investor presentation already includes that itself. Yeah. So you don't need to add anything of current maturities into this. That's already included in the investor presentation in the debt number show.
Okay, so basically the borrowing that has been faced on the balance sheet will be inclusive of current maturity going forward, yes, which was not the case earlier.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Seth from Quest Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, congratulations Manishji and Tripathi on doing well in challenging time. Sir, I have a question on JMC. Hello.
Good morning, Bharat bhai. Yeah, go on.
Good morning, Bharat bhai.
Yeah. Sir, can you give some color on the bid pipeline and for next 2-3 years perspective revenue growth? Because you said that balance sheet will not meant for growing but team building. So if you can elaborate more. And recently in latest presentation we announced that we have forayed into a tunneling business. So how we are expanding the vertical in JMC?
Yeah. So good morning, Bharat bhai. I see next 2-3 year horizon, all the business segments, the B&F, we see a very robust growth, the private as well as the government on both the sides. Infra, I don't have to say there is a huge opportunity, but it's a very competitive space, So there we will be very cautious to grow. Water, as said in earlier conferences, there is a huge opportunity domestic as well as international. And it will lead the growth along with B&F going forward. And the international, as said earlier that there is a robust growth in the order book, as well as we can see the further very strong pipeline overseas for JMC in case of the road and water project. And overall, if I sum it up, we can see 15 to 20% year to year going forward, say for next 3 years. So even if you look at our current order book, which if I take the L1 position, it is at around 24,000 crore. And at year end, we should end that at about 23,000, which will take us next year again to 15 to 20% growth. So Bharat bhai, to sum it up, we can look at 15 to 20% growth going forward, because we will be very cautious in terms of the booking the order. We'll be focusing, building the team and protecting the bottom number rather than only looking at the top line.
And for in this tunneling business, so where we are, what stage we are, and how do we see that opportunity in that business?
So, Bharat bhai, tunneling business overall India next 5 to 7 year total opportunity size is about 1 lakh crore. And this is both the underground metro as well as the inside tunneling, right? So that is why we have entered this segment. But as I said, we will go cautiously. And this sector, as I said, the road sector has become very competitive. But these niche sectors, the underground sectors, they are still, we can see a limited competition. And hence we decided to get into this sector. But as I said, we will enter cautiously, look at 1 or 2 projects, and then try to build the portfolio going forward.
Okay, thank you very much and all the best, and wish you happy Diwali, Manish ji and Tripathi ji.
Wish you also very happy Diwali.
Wish you happy Diwali, Bharat bhai.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bhavin Vitlani from SBI Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Morning, Manish.
Good morning, Bhavin.
So the question is on Kalpataru, where we are seeing a declining trend in orders, slowing execution, drop in margins, increase in working capital, and negative cash flow. So, because we have been highlighting a large part of our order book has been passed through, so could you just give us a overall picture? Where do you see the execution in the order flow, especially on the Kalpataru side, and especially on the working capital and the cash flows?
Sure. So let me just first, provide clarity on net working capital. So on the net working capital level, we've not seen a significant change. Yes, if you're comparing on the year end, normally Q2 always is high in our business, and then it corrects by the year end. So if you look at the net working capital days, last year Q2 were 96 days, now we're at 97 days. First quarter 22, we were 103 days, so it's reduced. Yes, year end was 86 days, but that's the nature of our business. The maximum collection happens in Q4, and that if you pick up the last 5, 6, 10 years, you see that. So working capital, as far as KPTL is concerned, standalone is under control. We do not have much challenges on that. And we continue to be clear that we have a cash inflow expected out of Kohima and Indore of 800 plus crores coming up in the next 2 quarters, which will help us reduce our debt significantly. Minimum 800, it could be higher than that. On a growth perspective, yes, there are challenges. And, the challenges came in from every aspect. One was bidding at what price levels to make sure that you don't lose money. Because steel, as I said, went up by closer to $20,000 in the last 6 months. Right? Will it come down? I don't know the order. Aluminium, yes, we can hedge. The day you bid, you can hedge aluminium, you can hedge copper, but steel, you can't do anything. Do we see stability? Yes. Last 1 month, we've seen stability. So now our ability to go and not include that price in our costing could start. But otherwise, it was becoming more and more difficult to, determine what price levels you need to bid for steel, which is at times closer to 30-35% of your project cost. So we were conscious in that. And, we had good visibility for 18 months. So we said, let's not really go aggressive on taking orders where you do not have visibility. Third, all of you are aware about our World Bank embargo, which ended on 6th October. We're now bidding for all those projects. So that will also provide us, an opportunity to bid for a lot more international projects. So with all of this, the current year looks like challenging. On three aspects, margins, I think we should still be okay given that we've taken CTC provisions, so 9 to 10 easily doable. We will target and see whether we can get it back to 10% levels if there is no further volatility in the steel prices. Top line growth, yes, we had guided for 10 to 15, but realistically to me, it's more 5 to 10% levels now on an annualized basis. Order book, there is visibility, but I'm still not being very gung-ho on it for the next 6 months, and that's why we've limited ourselves to 7 to 8,000 crores from the earlier 9,000 crores. We should also appreciate that the opportunity in JMC is so huge, right? So today, from a consult perspective, it's better to utilize the flows where you see profitable growth, right, and not necessarily drive, only a particular segment at a given point of time. From a long-term perspective, I see we getting back to that double-digit growth and double-digit margin into next year at a standalone level. And I'm pretty confident about it because now you see a lot of tenders coming out, the capex cycle coming back, oil prices going up, oil and gas opportunities improving, T&D international improving, both our subsidiaries are seeing good traction, margins improving on both our international subsidiaries. So with that, pretty confident of coming back to that 10 to 15% for the next year. But will we be as high as 20 to 25% for JMC? Looks difficult. Consol definitely 15 to 20% would happen in the current year as well as next year.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tina Virmani from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. My question is regarding the CTC provisioning which you had taken at the end of FY21 for the order book at that point of time. Now, I missed out on that commentary of yours, whether you have made any further provisioning to take into account the current up move in the steel prices in the current quarter or in 1H. Or will any further provisioning be required in FY22 itself to take that to take higher steel prices into account?
So just to give you a perspective on CTC provisioning, at the year end, our provisioning was closer to 146 crores. For the first half, we have inbuilt an additional loss of 80 odd crores coming out of steel, freight, and other commodities, which has already hit our P&L. Plus, we have provided for 10 crores of further provisioning on orders which needs to be delivered in the next 2 quarters. As I said earlier, I have 80,000 tons of steel of the old order book yet to be delivered. So as of today, as of 30th September, we are at around 157 crores of CTC provisioning on losses. Our own assessment is that this should be enough unless we again see steel coming up in a big way. And our assessment is that we should be able to utilize this entire provisioning in the current year and hardly anything should flow into the next year because majority of our old orders which are at lower prices on steel will all get completed in the current year. So as of today, we're confident with this we should continue to be at our margins of closer to 9.5-10%. And if steel prices improve, we could further improve on the margins. Or if steel prices reduce, sorry. When I say improve, it's reduce for us, not going up for us.
Right, sir. And my second question is regarding the T&D asset approval stage. At what stage is that process right now? Because it seems to have been delayed by a couple of months. So when can we actually see it closer to finalization?
So just to be very precise in your question, we have exactly 2 approvals pending. I just don't want to get into the details. The entire team is focused on doing it. My own assessment is that we should get this approvals in the month of November. Otherwise, everything is online. The line is commissioned. We're getting 100%, it is 100% tariffs we are getting on a month-on-month basis. So we're pretty confident that anytime between November 25th to December 15th, we should be able to close the deal. These 2 approvals, while Diwali this week, things might not happen, but getting into next week, I think personally I'll also be focused on making sure that this come into place. But we are 99.99% confident that we should be able to close the deal by 31st December. And when I say close the deal, is money in the bank.
Got it, sir. And my last question is limited to the bookkeeping side. If you can just repeat the revenue number for oil and gas and railways for the current quarter.
Sure. So just give me a minute. From a revenue perspective, all segments have seen degrowth. Clearly, that's why there's a degrowth on So if you look at Q2 22, our T&D business excluding LMG and including LMG and Fasttel is around 1,593 crores. Our infra business, which is rail, is around 370 odd crores, and oil and gas around 160 crores.
160 crores?
Yeah. For the quarter,
Sure.
Q2 22, and all of them have degrowth because overall there's been a degrowth. So all of them have degrown except for Linje Montage, which and Fasttel, because Fasttel came in the first time and Linje Montage showed a very good growth.
Got it, sir. Got it. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the questions.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Parikshit Kandpal from HDFC Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for the repeat opportunity. So the first question is on JMC. So what is the margin guidance for JMC now for the full year of 522? EBITDA margins.
Yeah, Kandpal, good morning. Yeah, so as I said earlier in the call, Parikshit, margins will be under pressure, but we are confident of maintaining it at the year end between 9 and 10.
Okay, so GMC standalone you're talking about, okay?
That's right, except the exceptional items.
And next 2-3 years, you said the growth could be about 20 to 25%, even the order book is strong.
15% plus definitely, right? And then, as I said, our more focus will be on improving the bottom line, building the team, and stabilizing the growth.
The other question is on loss funding now. So I think by this year end we have major lots of funding support required projects out there or maybe restructured. So what kind of loss funding support will go on for next 2-3 years for the balance portfolio?
Kanpan, I missed your question. Can you repeat the question?
Just asking you, what kind of loss funding support will be required for the portfolio now after March 2022, once the assets, WPL gets restructured? So what kind of residual loss funding will be required on an annual basis for the BOT portfolio?
So, Kanpal, if you see last couple of years, it has been in the range of 70 to 100 crore plus. We see it coming down substantially. With the KEPL now going for the termination. But there will be some involvement when it comes to the handing over to the asset to the NHAI. REWA, as clarified earlier, that will go for the asset sale, so that will stop. As well as WEPL, we may see very marginal. So the range of 70 to 100 crore may come down. I'm not giving a number, but anything between 25 to 30% of the previous years what we have been infusing.
So I'll just add to this. I think getting into the next years, we expect the inflow to be in the range of max 10 to 20 crores. That too just for some debt repayment, otherwise not beyond that. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because they're more on the next year, on 20 to 23.
That's right.
So 10 to 20 crores you said, right?
Yeah, max.
Oh, okay. Just last thing on the World Bank, you said the embargo is now gone away. So I just want to know what kind of opportunity, if you can quantify, opens up on the bidding side for KPTL.
No, so as I said, we're not bidding for the last 1 year because of the embargo. And on a lighter note, even if I would have bid, I would have only lost money with all the commodities going up. So somewhere there is God and somewhere there is, but anyway, that's on a lighter note. On a serious note, all African projects now we've started bidding. We're seeing a lot of projects coming up in Middle East also, and we're seeing a lot of projects coming in CIS countries also. And as I said, on the international front, I see bids of 15 to 20,000 crores happening in the next 3 to 4 months. Significant amount on the T&D space. So now there's nothing about whether to bid or not. It's all about saying that at what price levels to bid, because there's no limitation of any kind today.
Okay. Just one last thing to SKT, sir, on this KEPL project. So now it's you've given the termination notice. So how the thing works now? So you have to recover. It's on your equity investment. So how do you recover it? What could be qualified? What amount can get qualified contractually when this kind of force majeure event happens? If you can just give some sense on that and the timelines when we can expect this sale into panel. At least on the equity investment, I'm not talking about the claims which may take longer, just on the equity part.
So, Kanpal, as per the concession provision, the force majeure under which, under the farmer agitation, it falls in a category where we are supposed to get 110% of the adjusted equity and the debt due to the banker. This is the contract provision, but reality is that the NHAI will not give up this very easily, and we have to go through a process of resolving this with the NHAI based on this concession provision. It is the question of time. NHAI may settle it, or they may take an arbitration route. Now, so concession provision is very clear. We have to get back about 110% of, not about, the 110% of the adjusted equity, and the debt due has to go to the banker.
And we have written off everything. So the entire equity has been written off, all our loans and advances, loss funding, everything. So nothing remains on the balance sheet on the investments or on the loans and advances side on this asset side. Only the write-off provisions are there.
Right. So everything is written off, and if you are hearing the earlier in the same call that we have the claims, and as and when they mature, they will have. That is the only positive which is left out now to recover the lost equity and the which will come to the balance sheet.
Sorry, I'll just add equity. I think we still have a small amount of 47 crores in our books, which is where an arbitration claim we have already won, if you remember that. Right?
Yeah.
While it's not taken into P&L, but that much amount still lies as our investment in KEPL form of loans. So 47 crores is a precise number, and for which we have an arbitration claim already in our favor. So besides that, everything else has been written off.
So it's back-to-back protected with arbitration claims, so which
yeah, but it's not come in P&L still because of our policy where we don't take this in P&L, but that's the amount still shown against KEPL.
Okay, so thanks and all the best. I wish you happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Very happy.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Seth from Quest Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, Manishji. Thanks for the second time opportunity. This is pertaining to KPTL. When you, oil and gas as well as railway international opportunity. And second thing, how do we plan to leverage shares of Lindsay Montage and our Brazil subsidiary going ahead?
Sure. So, Bharat Bhai, as far as I said earlier also, oil and gas, with oil prices looking up, you're seeing many more tenders coming up, both domestic and international. And you are aware, the last 2 years we built a big team to focus on oil and gas international. We were L1 in one large project, but we lost it for some reasons more local to that country. But we are very focused on that. There's a big team on tendering, on operations, which is already inbuilt for the last 2 years. And I'm pretty confident that's a huge opportunity going forward. I'm not able to quantify that today. As I said earlier, around 3,000 crores worth of tenders to be bid in the next 3 months. But beyond that, our focus right now is to get ourselves qualified in as many countries, to get one international project and focus on execution, because the first one always gives you a challenge, and then grow from there. As far as railways is concerned, we're seeing a lot of opportunities on electrification, but yes, with intense competition. We're seeing some opportunities coming on composite projects also, and metro continues to be one focus area where JMC and KPTL could work together. Also on the international front, we have seen traction in 2-3 African countries where we have submitted our bids. And I'm hoping that before the year end, we should have a big project coming out from the international geography also. As far as Sweden and Brazil is concerned, our focus on Lindsay Montage continues to be extending our presence in Sweden, plus look at the neighboring countries, primarily Norway, Denmark and Finland, where we see a lot of opportunities coming on replacement of transmission assets. And we'll continue to focus on that from a 2 to 3 year perspective. As far as Brazil is concerned, they had a limited order book when we acquired them. Luckily, they don't have any losses of the past because that was already inbuilt in the valuation. But we're seeing some good traction on building a team there, on bidding for larger projects. So for the next 1 year, if you ask me what is the focus on Brazil, is about improving the team, getting the processes and systems in place, and looking at sustaining the current revenue. We'll look at growth going in from 23 onwards, as we did earlier in Sweden also, because the first 1 year it's very important to get a culture which is very similar to the KPTL culture, and we're working on that. But we're pretty happy about the opportunities. A good team of 150 odd people, very low debt numbers, focused on delivery, and we believe that post 23 this is a business which can easily give us a 15-20% growth, if not more. And we also using this subsidy to look at opportunity in the neighboring countries in Latin America. We have submitted a couple of bids, but from that more from a long-term perspective. Short-term, it's make sure they deliver what they've committed, build processes, get the team in place, and start focusing on growth from 23 onwards.
Okay. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to Ms. Bhumika Nair for closing comments.
Yes, I would just like to thank everyone for being on the call, and particularly the management for giving us the opportunity to host the call. So thank you so much for answering and taking time out for all the investors.
Thank you, everyone. Wishing all of you a very happy and safe Diwali. It's a good week of festivities. We all need to enjoy this. Wishing all of you very happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of DAM Capital Advisors Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.